Mornings are better with a warm beverage, even for Latter-day Saints. Meet Postum, the ideal coffee alternative and proud sponsor of This Week in Mormons podcast. Spotted on the coffee aisle at Smith's Grocery or at your local nearby store. Can't locate it? No worries. Order it at postum.com. Explore delicious recipes to tailor your Postum experience. Start your day off right with Postum.
Hey, listener, you were probably expecting to find or to hear the international edition of TWIM this week. But
yes, Matt, it's okay. You've been international recently. You can do this.
I have. Yeah, I may not sound like Daniel or Georgia.
Right, you don't.
Because they're not able to be with us this week. So Melissa and I have volunteered to step in. And so we're going to record this week. We're going to thank you for joining us, listener.
Yes. Welcome to This Week in Mormons, Twin Siblings. Matt, tell us about your international travels.
So last week, Mother's Day was the first time in 3 years that my wife's been able to have the whole family together. My son has been serving in the Army in Germany. And my daughter before that was serving as a missionary. So it's been a while. So we took the whole family to Germany. And last Sunday, we got to have the whole family together in Germany for Mother's Day. And it was awesome.
Oh, yeah, that does sound awesome. And then you got to visit Germany.
We did. So Melissa, over under 1,000 miles that we put on our rental car.
While you were in Germany for a week?
1 week. We were there for 7 days.
And you did not go over 1,000 miles.
We did. 1,100.
No. Oh my goodness. Is it even that big of a country?
So when I was planning the vacation, I was like, okay, it'll be really simple. This is insane, Melissa. So I was like, okay, we're going to land Tuesday night. We got there at 11:30 p.m. Tuesday night.
Okay.
And I was like, no big deal. We'll wake up at 8 a.m. and we will drive 2 hours to Stuttgart and then we'll drive 2 hours to Nuremberg. I was like, that's a really simple day of like.
Okay.
And so the whole trip was like that. It's like we drive 2 hours, we stop someplace for like an hour or so, and then we go someplace else. And so it was just a lot of drive. My wife has always wanted to go see the castles in Germany. And so we went to Neuschwanstein Castle and we went to some other castles. And all our mom wanted for Mother's Day was a family photo. So one of my sons is getting into photography and he brought a nice camera with him and a tripod and all of that stuff. And so I'm like, I too would like a nice family photo of all of us in it. And do you know where I first chose to get? I'm going to sound like a weirdo.
To take the picture at?
To take our family photo. Okay.
Where?
So you have to be like a history geek to care about this. But in Nuremberg, Germany, there is a Zeppelin field. And it is where Hitler and the Nazis would do their big rallies. So if you ever see the propaganda videos, there's Hitler standing on this podium and there's Nazis marching all around these like steps with these flags and stuff. And then there's this whole field full of Nazis like saluting and whatever.
And that's where you took your family photo?
Because it's so beautiful. There's like these nice steps that it's like a perfect location for a family photo. Germany has not kept it up, right? There's weeds and stuff growing and things like that. But I was like, this is a beautiful spot for a family photo. But our mom was not that into that. She did not want that as a Mother's Day present. So
beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah. And there's also, so there's this old like Nazi stuff where I just love history. I love being in like historical places. We also, as part of our tour in Nuremberg, we did a tour called the Medieval Torture Tour.
Interesting.
So Nuremberg, like in the medieval times, was a major trade center. And this prison where they would torture people has been preserved, along with all the instruments they used to torture people.
Oh, gosh.
So you can go down there and like sit in the prisons they sat in. And then you can see, oh, this is where they came to get tortured. And this is how they got tortured. And
really educational for your young family to just really understand.
The tour guide's like, you have to remember, they were not interested in the truth. Their purpose was to extract a confession from people. And we found out that nobody ever got out alive. If you could,
wow.
if you could survive all of the torture without confessing, they called it divine intervention, and you apparently didn't actually do the wrong thing you were accused of. And he said that happened one time, and there was a judge listening upstairs to all the torture and confession, and he said, we can't have this. You need to find another means of torture to make this person confess. So then they found a new way to make this person confess. And so apparently God never intervened on their behalf.
This is, this isn't what I thought we were going to talk about when you brought up Mother's Day. Yeah.
Well, so Mother's Day was nice. Like Germany, I think they do. It's a branch for the military service members, or award for military service members. So
yeah.
It was very American. It was all in English, but the chocolate they gave was nice German chocolate that cost like $10 a bar here in the US.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the chocolate bar I got.
What chocolate bar did you get?
Okay. I love this though. So I'm in a YSA ward. And so there's not any mothers there. There's literally 2 mothers in the whole audience.
Wow.
And, like a lot of the young single adults were gone to their homes to be with their mothers. So we had the smallest ward ever. I'm talking fewer than 30 people were in attendance that day.
Is it also because school's out?
Yeah, school's out. It's a summer ward. And so, so it was very, very small. I did like it because the talks weren't focused on Mother's Day. They were just actual church talks, which is my preference. I like that. There was one person who stood up and said like, hey, happy Mother's Day, Sister Jensen and Sister Rush, because there's 2 of us. Everyone else, let's move. Anyway, but I did think it was cute. The elders quorum apparently at some point realized like, oh, we got to have a Mother's Day treat, like, right? So it seemed like they had run to Sam's Club the night before and grabbed just like a big 52 pack of candy bars, like variety candy bars. You got your Twix, you got your peanut M&Ms.
Like they're going to fill a vending machine or something like that.
Yeah. So then at the end of church, they run back there and like the box isn't even open. They're like ripping it open as people are walking back, and I literally didn't realize it was for Mother's Day. I was like, oh, is this what we're going to do in the summers now, is have candy on our way out? And they were like, no, this is for mothers. Well, I mean, let's give it to all. Should we give it to all the women? Yeah, it's for all the women. And then they're looking around and they're like, should we just give one to everyone? And I was like, yeah, give it to everyone. There's plenty of candy bars.
There are 2 mothers here and they do not want 25 candy bars each.
Yeah. But guess what? I did get to pick peanut M&Ms and I didn't have to share with my husband. So it was a great treat.
See, because my wife hates chocolate. So whatever they hand out at Mother's Day is my treat that I get to take home with me.
Okay. So good chocolate.
Typically, I get to eat it during elders quorum, right?
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Well, so was it fun having all of your kids around together?
Yeah, it was super fun. I did have all of my kids around, which has probably been a few years since we did that. They made dinner, we played games. It was great. But if I'm being honest, Matt, not my dream Mother's Day. My dream Mother's Day would to be entirely alone for the whole day. That's
Seriously?
what I would like to do.
You don't want your kids there telling you how great you are and how much
I
they
love my
you?
kids. I love my kids. I love to be alone. I'm such an introvert, first of all. Like on Father's Day, dads get to go play golf. Do you know what I mean? It's not like here's all of your children, snuggle them for the day. I don't want to do that. Okay. I'd like to go out, and if I could float on my boat all alone in the sun and enjoy the nature and the quiet and the peace, that's my first choice. Nobody else. My second choice would be everybody leave home and I get to spend the day cleaning and baking. I actually like to clean and bake. I'd like to do both of those things. If I could do that all by myself, that'd be a dream day. But I mean, I love my kids. I like hanging out with them, but I don't think that should have to be Mother's Day.
Melissa, it's interesting because your husband also loves to clean. Like, I came home from Germany to visit mom, and your husband was out there cleaning a boat. And then I went home, and then I spent it was 2 days later, I came back and he was still cleaning a boat.
Well, yes, we both like to clean. That's true. Our separate things, right? Like I'm in charge of the laundry. And when I say I'm in charge, like he's not allowed to do laundry, right? Like I've got my system in my way. He's in charge of dishes, and I'm actually not allowed to do dishes. Like
Oh,
we've got our
oh,
things that we like to clean, but they're
mm.
independent of each other. Anyways, yeah,
I
I
like
guess we're weird that way.
I like to have my kids clean. I like to me a
Uh-huh.
good day is my kids do everything and I don't do anything. Like
Okay.
I also probably prefer to be alone. I don't think I'm as much that way as you are. This is something about our siblings, Melissa, that they don't all understand about each other is that they all crave, not all of them, there's two exceptions, but the
Okay.
rest of them all crave to be alone. And so then they don't understand it when they're like, why doesn't Melissa return my phone calls? Why doesn't Melissa return my texts? Why doesn't Melissa ever come see me? Why don't I ever hang out with Melissa? I'm like,
Yeah.
because you have to
It's
love people
it's
the way
not
that
that
they are.
yeah, it's not that I don't enjoy people. I do. It's that in order to energize myself, to rejuvenate myself, I need to be alone, right? So if
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the perfect day, it's a day where I'm able to just like completely relax and build up energy. Like,
Hmm.
yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Whereas my son, he gets energy from being with other people, and being alone
right.
bothers him. It disturbs him. So he wants to be with other people. And another son too wants to just talk to people because being silent is like uncomfortable for him. So he'll just talk
Yeah,
about anything just so that there's noise. So part of loving people is loving them how they are and letting them be who they are.
that's right, Matt. And that's what you should say when you're asked to speak on Mother's Day.
I will tell women. I actually
Yes.
I actually gave the best Mother's Day talk in the world one time, in
Uh-huh.
my opinion.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what I said, but I could look into those mothers' eyes and they thought, he gets it. He
Yeah. Yeah. I love it when men speak about mothering to me on Mother's Day
he
and say
re-
things like, "You're good enough. You're good and you're doing just fine." Yeah, I don't need you to tell me that. Thank you.
this
I know it.
I did say this. Tell me what you think about this. I did say that we should not measure our success in life, including in mothering, by the outcomes that are produced.
Sure.
Okay. Well,
I
there you
love
go.
that.
That would be
I
my
love
Mother's
that.
Day talk. Don't measure
Okay.
yourself by outcomes.
Okay,
Hey,
thank you.
this is the other fun thing I did. So BYU, all the BYUs can only hire members of the church for positions they have, faculty positions.
Oh,
So,
I didn't actually know that. No.
I mean, they can maybe find exceptions, but they have to do their best to try to find active members of the church to fill their
Okay.
position. So
Okay.
BYU does this thing where they invite members of the church who are political scientists. They get together and we talk about research, and for me,
Oh,
it's so much fun. It's
scintillating. Wow. Yes.
And actually, my daughter came to us. She's like, "This is so fun." And I'm like, that makes you a weird person. Like the fact that you don't have to be here and you chose to come listen to people talk
Mhm.
about what's the best way to measure party identification, and that you found
Oh.
satisfaction in listening to that
Mm.
makes you a weird person. But I'm that kind of weird.
Yeah,
And so for
it's
me,
fine.
I look forward to it. It's just one of my favorite things to do. But one of the political scientists that's there, he's from Sugar City. And when I was listening to the Chad Daybell trial,
Oh, like you do.
I know
Like
I've
you.
been listening. So this is what I do. I read the Nate Eaton summary and to
Okay.
figure out like what happened for the day. And then if there's something I want to know more about, I go to YouTube and I find that part and then I just listen to that whole part of the trial.
Matt,
So
you're lying. Everybody knows you've listened to every moment of every day of the entire trial in its entirety.
well, I was in Germany and so I got a little behind and so I had to
Oh,
like
okay. Okay.
I had to
Okay.
catch up. So
Gotcha.
anyhow, in this past week, there was a phone call between Chad and Lori Daybell that happened while
Hmm.
she was in prison.
Oh, yes.
And
I did
then
listen to this. It was crazy.
yeah,
Okay, go on.
it was
Sorry. Go
totally
on.
crazy. Well, and the Nate Eaton summary of it was confusing to me. So I was like, I've got to listen to this whole thing. And then at one point, she's talking about how she watched a TV show about building swimming pools in the backyard. And then Chad
Mm.
says something like, well, Taylor Hill's parents lived in a trailer on their driveway. And I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I know Taylor. And
Okay,
so,
wait. This is the Taylor Hill from the conference.
yes. So at the conference,
And
I
he
said,
just got randomly mentioned in the middle of this major trial.
yes. And so I said,
Oh,
so I didn't know if it was the same. There could be more than one Taylor Hill who lives in Sugar City and is friends with the David.
sure.
Awesome.
Uh-huh.
So I bump into him at the conference. I was like, Taylor, I got to ask you, like, did your parents happen to live in a trailer on their driveway while they were building a house? And he's like, oh my goodness. He's like, when that happened in the trial, I got like 20 text messages of like all these people asking me. And then he said, my dad just had to go on Facebook and post a photo. And he's like, I do not live in a camper. This is a photo of our house. So,
can you imagine getting that sort of attention from this sort of a thing that you actually have nothing to do with? I mean,
I know.
It's just somebody randomly dropped your name in a telephone call that happens to be played in a court hearing. Yeah.
Well, so he was a young man in Chad Daybell's ward, and he's friends with Chad Daybell's kids. And so he knows the family. In fact, he told me that when they found out, as soon as they found out that Tammy Daybell had died, his dad said to his mom, Chad did this. And his mom's like, no way, Chad did this.
Really?
Melissa, here's the other thing he told me is that there's somebody else in Sugar City who was a follower of Chad Daybell, and her husband died under mysterious circumstances, and she got a $500,000 life insurance payout after the death of her husband. He didn't tell me.
I love This Week in Mormons Inquirer edition.
Well, so I talked to Taylor. I said, I got to have you on the podcast to talk about Chad Daybell, get the backstory, get all of the stuff because everybody who's interested only gets the stuff that's presented in court.
Right.
You never get the everyday, what was really going on.
So is he going to come on? Is he going to let us interview him?
He said he's going to. So
yes, that will be awesome.
That'll be one of our future interviews, listener, if you're into that. Make sure you listen to his name. If you can't remember his name, you're not listening to the trial.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Well, that's a great update, Matt. It might be time for us to jump to the news. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of the church news lately is about temples, right? A temple is going to be dedicated. A temple is going to have an open house. Oh, we found a location for this temple. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot because there's a lot of temples news going on, including this temple, people don't want it. Anyway, I found this website that lists all of the temples chronologically. It's called Church of Jesus Christ Temples.org. And basically it goes through every temple starting at the very beginning, number 1, St. George back in 1877. And it says when it's dedicated, who dedicated it, but it also goes through all of the current ones and says is it under construction? When's the groundbreaking? When is the groundbreaking scheduled for? And then all of the temples that have just been announced and what stages they're at. Did you know, Matt, 350 temples have been announced?
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah.
But I remember my mom told me once that there were going to be 800 or 900 temples announced. So it feels like not enough at the same time.
By when? That's a lot.
If we're going to do the This Week in Mormons Inquirer edition, we should have her on so she could share all of the rumors she shares with us.
Remember, we were going to do a podcast called My Mom Thinks. just have her say some of the things she thinks. Yeah.
But I remember last time we recorded, Melissa, you said you wanted free garments. So if you do free garments, you got to get rid of some of those 350 temples because
too many temples. Well, okay. I've gotten some feedback on that, by the way, and I still stand by. I do think we should do free garments
for everybody. Mitt Romney should be getting his own free garments.
Sure. Yep. Just to wrap up this wonderful story, Matt, there are currently 50 temples under construction around the world. That's a lot, right?
That's a lot.
Being built. More shocking to me is that over 100 temples have been announced, and that's it. 100.
Well, 100 that have been announced that don't have anything going on, right?
Well, they could be they could have a site announced. They could be working on plans, but they are not under construction. Over 100 announced, not under construction
that have never had a groundbreaking ceremony.
Correct. Yep.
Well, so the Rexburg Temple is one of those that we keep waiting. It's so tedious.
They've got a site for it, but they haven't started construction. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
They're clearing ground and all of that stuff. And I really do think it should be called the Walmart Temple instead of whatever name they gave it. It should be the Rexburg Walmart Temple.
Mm-hmm. Get your garments next door. Your free garments. I don't know. Okay.
My story is a little more tragic. So there's a a missionary who was serving in Utah. I think the city is Saratoga Springs. And he is from California, and he sexually assaulted a girl in the garage. And so he's been sent home from his mission, and I assume he's going to face charges.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Sexual assault, is it not?
Yeah, so to me, I actually think that this sort of thing has been happening for a long time in the church, and I think that it's good that more people are getting sent home. And like, as a missionary, so again, if you read the story, he's kissing a girl in the garage, and it's consensual. And at some point she changes her mind and no longer wants to like make out with him or whatever. And we don't know what happened, but
we don't know what the sexual assault was. When
Correct.
I read a story like this, I'm assuming rape, but this isn't actually saying that. Okay.
The definition of sexual assault is much broader than it was. I don't know if the definition's broader, but the application of it, right? Like if you're forcibly touching a woman or you're forcibly kissing a woman, that is sexual assault in the way that it's interpreted right now. I think that's maybe since the Me Too movement, but I'm just telling you, I know a lot of guys that were kissing girls after they said, I don't want to do this anymore. Or even if they didn't say, I don't want to do this anymore. Like there was just a lot of situations where girls were like, that went too far. I'm not happy with what happened. I'm displeased with that.
While on missions?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know how to explain our sexist society, Melissa, but even as a bishop, I would talk to a lot of young women who would say, these kinds of things happened to me when I was a young woman, and it was another young man in the ward, and nothing happened to him because we wanted him to repent and we wanted him to not have his life ruined. And so I was told to keep quiet and not say anything about it and just trust that, the ecclesiastical stuff would take care of it. So I don't know. I know that it's a bad story that missionaries should not be sexually assaulting women, but I think
shouldn't be kissing women.
Right. So I think it's a positive thing that he's been sent home from his mission and that he's going to face charges, because that didn't always happen in my opinion, that didn't always happen in the past.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in our next story, Kevin W. Pearson, Elder Pearson, he's the Utah area president, right? So he's over all things Utah in the church. He came out and said that Utah is still the quote breadbasket of the church. And it's an interesting thing to say. It's a little pompous, like woo woo like, Utah. It's like woo woo Utah. Don't worry. It's an international church, but we're still important and mainly in charge, is kind of what he said.
Yeah. So the breadbasket, so Ukraine was the breadbasket of Europe, meaning that Ukraine produced wheat and grains that were used to produce food that fed all of Europe, right? So if you're going to say Utah's the breadbasket of the church, you're basically saying Utah is the place that's producing whatever it is the church needs, that makes the whole church, that feeds the whole church.
Yes, and that is what he's saying. Okay, I'm going to give you one of his quotes. He said, while he's in Utah, almost every stake you go to, you think, this has got to be the most faithful stake on the earth.
What?
But it's just over and over.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
And that's only true in Utah?
He's over Utah. It's almost like a State of the Union for the Church of Utah. And to be fair, there are some statistics. Like he said, like 52% of senior missionaries come from Utah. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, like the breadbasket, like we're producing a lot of senior missionaries. But there's so many temples in Utah, right? Like, but
yeah, I'm sure saints in other places are like, that's because they're so righteous. That's because they're so good.
Yeah. Anyways, I found another article that kind of goes along with this, and it is it's a survey that just came out, and basically is that the state of Utah has the highest percentage of people who identify with a religious affiliation, so higher than any other state.
What a shock.
Well, I think it's kind of a shock because there's a lot of southern states that highly identify as religious, I guess.
Religious affiliation just means you choose a church.
And you belong to a church.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of Christians, even evangelicals, if you say, which church do you go to? They don't pick Baptist or Lutheran. they have like this very specific small church. And so they'll say some other church or nothing in particular, or they'll say none a lot of times. They'll say no church because the list that you give them isn't specific enough to like, it's like where they're like, well, why don't you just choose Protestant? They're like, because I'm not a Protestant. I'm Church of Christ of this, of this, of this, and that's who I am. And I'm not that other thing. So there are a lot of people in the South that have a religious affiliation, but they don't show up as
it.
Right.
But Utah, okay, so according to this survey, 76% of people in Utah claim a religious affiliation.
That's not surprising.
Well, it's gone up over 8% in the last decade. So it's going up. And the next closest one, I'm looking at this, and it's around 63%. Like,
what is that? Alabama?
I think that's Texas, Louisiana. I don't know. It's just like a picture of the United States. I don't know my states well enough.
So it's down there by Texas, kind of on the Gulf of Mexico.
It's next to Texas on the right.
Yeah. Louisiana.
Yeah. So 63%. There's another one that's 63%, but that's less. That's over 10% less than Utah. So,
but Melissa, you know a lot of people who never ever go to church that say, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
However, this also says that it has the highest population of any state of people who go to church every single week.
I know. So I'm saying those are two different things though, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So not every church demands that you go to church every week, right?
Correct.
You can be a good Catholic and not go to church every week. So the church attendance also isn't the best measure of how religious people are. And also, you know people that go to church every week that are not at all religious because that's the thing to do in the state of Utah.
I 100% agree with you. I just think that it's stories like this because Utah is definitely a religious state. It's stories like this that allow the previous story that people then say things like, we're the breadbasket of the church.
Oh,
like I think that people jump to saying things like that. And listen, I understand that you're a general authority and that you're just speaking or whatever.
The Utah area president.
I just really don't like the message it sends. I really don't. It's very pompous and it's very like, we're so important. Everybody's important, right? I just think it's a weird thing to come out and say. I do.
Did I ever tell you about, so there was this time Elder Bednar came to BYU, Idaho, and he had a meeting with just faculty. And he just opened it up for questions. And somebody in Rexburg asked him some question, which was basically trying to get him to say that Rexburg is such a special place, right? Because the question was something like, Elder Bednar, I've noticed this pattern that things that began at BYU, Idaho suddenly get adopted by the whole church. And don't you think it's like interesting? Like there's these really cool ideas that we develop and then other people adopt them. And Elder Bednar's response to me was just classic, which is why I remember it's been almost 10 years. He said, do you want to know which place in the church right now is the most like Nauvoo, where people are just full of the Spirit and full of fire and just so excited about the growth of the church? West Africa. And then we were all just like, hey, you're not supposed to tell us that. And he just tells us how awesome things are in West Africa and how great the saints are in West Africa.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think he was trying to say like West Africa is the coolest people in the world, right? But I think he was trying to send this message of like, get over yourselves. No matter who you are, no matter where you live, there are good members of the church everywhere in the world. And the church doesn't survive anywhere without really good members of the church in those places.
Absolutely.
So why would we even say better than, worse than?
Well, and here's the other thing that I don't think it's recognizing. Like, do you know how many benefits and advantages you have because you are a member of the church in Utah? You dang well better be serving senior missions, right? Like, you dang well better be going to the temple more. Like you have the opportunities. So I have a friend that was a stake president in Albania. And he was saying, because the Pathway program, when it first started, it was great. It's like, we're going to give you a college education and you can stay in your home country and you can build the church. And he's like, and then the messaging changed where they're like, look, you've got this education. Why don't you come to Utah and one of our church schools and finish your degree? And he's like, and as a stake president, I was livid. I was like, we have good, strong people that we need to stay here. And you're recruiting them all to come to Utah and to Idaho where you don't need them. We need them here where they are. So there's a lot to that like,
a lot of good members of the church leave other places to come to Utah and Idaho, where they could do a lot of good if they just stayed where they were at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, so my story is not nearly as like thought-provoking, but Greth Bailiff Peterson, and I'm sorry to her family if I said her name wrong, she has passed away. And she's important because she was a very active feminist in the church. And so a lot of the LDS feminists look to her as an example and a guide. And so I think we should just note that she has passed.
Okay.
But by the way, our church does a really good job of producing feminists. Most people don't know this, but like the suffragist movement, a whole lot of the power behind that came from polygamist women who were living in Utah.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. There is a long history of feminism in our church.
Yeah, I know that because I love history and I know so much about
it. and probably also because of This Week in Mormon History that we do from time to time when we have.
Yep. That's right.
This is another segment that I created that's similar to This Week in Mormon History.
Ooh, is it Famous Mormons?
It is. Okay.
Oh, Famous Mormons. I'm ready, Matt.
I felt bad last time because it just felt so niche. Like maybe Melissa doesn't watch Vanderpimp, whatever this show was, the rules of. And maybe our listeners don't, but I do know that everybody who listens to this podcast eats or has eaten at a fast food restaurant.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
So it is the founder of which fast food chain was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So they started a fast food chain and they were a member of the church. Okay, I'm ready. Bring it. Okay.
Number 1 is Wendy's. The founder was Dave Thomas. You might remember him from the commercials back in the day.
Sure. Yeah, Dave Thomas. Okay.
We've got Taco Bell, founded by Glenn Bell.
Okay.
In San Bernardino is where that one started.
Okay.
And then we have Kentucky Fried Chicken, founded by Pete Harmon.
Okay. Well, I was going to judge by the names. They're all very actually Mormon-sounding names. I think
because it was like Tiancum and Ammonihah.
No, Dave Thomas.
Yeah. Glenn Bell sounds so much like Glenn Beck.
Yeah, that's
who's another famous Mormon.
Okay, I picked Taco Bell.
The answer is Pete Harmon, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I should have thought that through more because they're originally from Salt Lake, right?
That's
Kentucky
right.
Fried Chicken. Okay, yeah.
That's right. And I think they might still be headquartered in Salt Lake City. But yeah, he was from a family of 14 kids.
Wow.
All of whom were members of our church. So next time
sideline real quick and you tell me your favorite fast food restaurant.
In-N-Out.
Oh, really?
I really like In-N-Out.
I've only eaten there once and it was meh for me.
Well, In-N-Out, I like them because they have a simple menu and they're not expensive. I can get a good hamburger with tomatoes for like $2.
Okay, true.
I can't get that at any other fast food place.
Unless you use the McDonald's app, in which case, have you ever used the McDonald's app? I was against it for years. And finally, my husband was like, you must download it or I will not be getting you a breakfast sandwich. And turns out I kind of love it. Like they have great deals on there.
Yeah.
But I also don't really like McDonald's.
I like the Big Mac at McDonald's. And so I do use the app to get Big Mac sometimes.
Okay.
And my son works at Wendy's and every time he works, he gets a free meal. And so he does bring home Wendy's a lot right now. And I kind of like Wendy's, but I don't think I would pay for Wendy's. I think I would
gotcha.
But wait, so what one's your favorite?
Chick-fil-A, followed closely by Del Taco.
Melissa, I put Chick-fil-A sandwich as like my 6th favorite chicken sandwich.
Oh, I don't eat their chicken sandwich, but their breakfast biscuit, their chicken biscuit in the morning, I allow myself one a month because it's just that good. Wow. And when you're coming home from the gym on a Saturday morning, you think, I deserve that. I
want chicken in a biscuit. That'll really hit the spot.
Yeah. And then I really like their chicken strips.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's not the chicken sandwich.
Good detour, though. Are you ready for big deal, little deal, no deal?
Yes. Okay. So for this first story, I don't have a link. You're just going to have to trust me that I'm giving you good information.
Yes. Okay. Give me a headline.
After holding steady for many years, enrollment in institutes, like the church institutes, right, began to decline in 2016, From 2016 until 2021, attendance dropped 18%.
Wow.
But they made some changes, and so enrollment is back up again. So is that a big deal, a little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1.
Little deal.
Big deal, Melissa.
Okay, tell me more. Institute is what you do when you're in college, and it's like seminary, but you have to sign up for it. And you're forced to do it at church universities, is my recollection. You have to take institute classes.
They make you take religion classes, not institute.
Oh, so this is separate. Okay, so institute this is if you're at a non-church school. Okay.
In my opinion, institute is more important than seminary because seminary, your parents make you do it. And there are a few people who choose to do it. I remember we had Jaden on the podcast, and seminary was very instrumental in helping him come back to the church.
Yeah.
But institute happens at that time of life where you're moving out on your own and you're making your own decisions about how you want to be as an adult. And so institute is a place where you can gather with members of the church that helps you kind of make that transition into adulthood and be an active member of the church. So to me, institute's important. That's why I said big deal.
I agree. And so 18% decline is huge. That's huge.
So do you want to, here's the things they did that they said made the difference in bringing people back.
So it has started to come back up.
Yeah, it's back up. So it was like 360,000. It dropped down to the 200,000 range, somewhere in there. And now it's back up to like 340,000 people that go to institute.
I want to guess one thing they've done.
Okay.
They did that big date night thing. Like every single institute that I'm aware of last year had this big thing where they had like this big push for dating, and all of the institutes held like a big date night event.
Yes.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. So that's part of this broader thing. So it turns out that the largest institute gatherings in the church right now are in Africa, where students learn how to inlay textiles with decorative beads as part of like a big institute activity.
So crafting?
Yeah. So what they've learned is if they have these big activities that sometimes it's teaching skills, sometimes it's service projects.
Okay.
But like big activities bring people together, and that's the biggest draw for people coming to institute is when they have big projects or big events that draw people in.
So you can go to those events and not be registered for an institute class. But the thought is, as you come to be a part of these events and this gathering, then that would lead you to sign up for institute if you hadn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have like a council for the institute, and then these YSA councils in the wards, I think, and they kind of work together and say, how can we plan activities that meet our local needs and will bring people in?
Yeah, because in our YSA ward, there are callings where you're like the institute representative for the ward.
Yeah.
And so you make sure that everybody knows what's going on at the institute. And then sometimes you'll coordinate like ward or stake activities with institute activities to try and like cross, I don't know.
Yeah, right. And I saw a billboard in Utah that they're doing another one of those big YSA conferences in August. They're doing that again, right?
And you think that's institute related?
I do think so. I do think that's what that's all about is what's a big event that we could have in Utah that would bring everybody together. And then once we're all together, then say, hey, why don't you take an institute class? It could be a lot of fun.
Interesting.
I mean, they do smaller things too, like the date nights and things like that.
Yeah. I've noticed in my stake that there are institute classes for adults.
Yeah.
Like, so they've called people in the stake to teach institute classes to adults, not young adults, but adults in the stake.
Yeah.
Is that part of this kind of a thing?
I don't think that those adults count as numbers for this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I do know that my daughter at BYU, so she takes religion classes at BYU, but there's also an institute with a person called in their stake that teaches that institute class. And she goes to institute in addition to taking religion classes at BYU. So
interesting. Okay, I got you.
Here's two other ones that they do. Teachers are encouraged to spend more time listening to students and allowing them more freedom in how they chart their course through the topics.
Ooh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. More like what we're supposed to be doing in Come Follow Me, like Sunday school type classes right now.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I think way less of this. The institute teacher is the expert on the subject and decides how we talk about the subject, which is similar to this. No, this first one is also a little different. So, seminaries and institutes have begun to implement smaller workshops of 3 to 6 weeks on current applicable topics. So, like
Okay.
some issue that comes up that people are concerned about, they say, hey, let's have a little workshop and we'll get together and talk about that.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
You like
Okay.
that too?
I do. I do. Yeah,
Okay.
that was an interesting article. I think you're right. That is a big deal.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Matthew.
Sure.
Okay. Now, here's my next one. It's from the New York Times. Modern Mormon missionaries, how Gen Z has embraced Latter-day Saint missionary work. Big deal, little deal, no deal. 3, 2, 1.
Big deal.
Little deal.
Well,
okay.
I only say big deal because it's the New York Times. I love when the New York Times talks good about us.
Listen, I love when the New York Times recognizes this. I say little deal because they're highlighting things that if you're a member of the church, you've already known for a little while.
Yeah.
But they're bringing it to a national audience. And so basically they're just saying like, hey, missionaries are so different. Missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are so different than what you think it is. And then they just kind of outline how a lot of the changes that have happened have made it so way more Gen Z young people are actually wanting to serve missions.
Yep.
And so they talk about things like how it's less knocking on doors and it's more social media. They actually did a lot of really cute things, like links to social media things that elders have done and sisters have done, like singing little TikTok videos or throwing the football around. So
have you seen those?
Yeah, I think they're fun.
I like them. Yeah.
So they talked about that change. They also talked about how a lot of missionaries can do now service missions. So it's more focused on service, and even sometimes that's closer to home. And then they talked about how women can wear pants on their missions, and the dress code for elders has changed quite a lot. It's a lot less formal as far as wearing like a suit jacket and all that. They can call home once a week, and all of these changes. And basically they interviewed a lot of missionaries and said like, how has this changed your approach to missionary work? And missionaries are like, yeah, we actually want to serve now. Like it's something that we look forward to. We get to go still, like it's still like an opportunity to travel to a new place in the world and experience life there. But and then the article just cites that how missionary work has risen by 25% since COVID, basically. But yeah, that we're back up to a high number of people serving missions, and I think it's a cool article.
I actually think like those numbers you just cited are very impressive because there was a period of time where people were not serving missions. And when that happens, you get this real risk of people saying it's not that important to serve a mission. And I remember the General Conference when President Nelson and President Ballard were both like, now is the time to go back in the mission field. And that young people just responded to that they're like, wow. Because I remember talking to my sons and they were sort of like, well, if the mission fits or if it's something that I want to do, then maybe I'll do it. And I was like, you are not a sister. You are a priesthood holder. And for you, you don't have a choice. It's a priesthood obligation.
Right.
And they hadn't heard that messaging before that because.
Oh, interesting.
Because like that little period of time where people weren't serving missions. So it's impressive that it's back.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. My story is this. Mormon missionaries falling in love. What are the rules? 3, 2, 1. No deal.
No deal.
This story is it's all about experiences missionaries have with like romance and should you fall in love and should you not. And I remember when I was a missionary, we were all told lock your hearts and don't fall in love on your mission and things like that. There are so many more sister missionaries now than there were proportionally.
And they're close in age to the elders.
Yeah, that's right. The 21-year-old sisters had no interest in the 19-year-old elders back in the day.
Right.
Yeah. And so now it's just an article about like, what are the rules? Guess what they are. Try to guess the rules. Can missionaries date, Melissa?
No.
Can they fall in love while they're on their missions and keep it a secret from everybody else? No is the answer.
No, but do they sometimes?
Sure, of course. Listen, Harold B. Lee met his wife while they were serving as missionaries. So of course it happens.
So did our brother meet his wife
that's
while
right.
they were serving as missionaries. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a funny part of culture. And I think honestly, there's a lot of people who believe that they were supposed to meet the person that they were supposed to marry through missionary service, right? There's no other way that they would have met them.
Yeah.
I also at our Mother's Day dinner, there was this interesting conversation that we had where it was like, okay, if you meet someone before your mission, say in high school, and you're dating, okay, and you both decide you're going to go on missions, okay, and then but you kind of like promise each other like we're going to get married after our mission because we're super in love, but we're both going to go on a mission. And then you go on your mission, and in your mind, you're kind of a little bit engaged. You're at least promised to each other, right? Are you allowed to call each other weekly?
No.
But do they?
I'm sure a lot of them do.
A lot of missionaries with this ability to call, they're definitely calling sometimes friends. Maybe you call your friend like once every 6 months. Maybe you call your girlfriend only once a month, not every single week. But then, okay, so then the big question was, do you get to say that you dated for 2 years while you were on your mission? Because when you get home and you get married a week after you get home, you don't want to be like, yeah, we only dated for a week. So a lot of them are saying, no, we dated for 2 years.
While he was a missionary.
So Mormon culture is weird.
I know. And I really try to never judge people, right? Because people should do whatever makes them happy and like feels best to them. But whenever I talk to young people about it, I say, listen, you're going to be married to that person for years and years and years. And you only get this 18 months or 2 years to be a missionary. So I would not want to like cheapen one experience in my anticipation of the other. But at the same time, like, if you love somebody, I mean, you just love them. You just want to talk to them. You want to share experiences with them.
Yeah.
And also they're young people, right? Young people are just so fun. They're fun to,
Okay,
well,
good story.
Hey, listener, if you were hoping that we were going to tell you the rules of missionary love, you were wrong. You'll have to read this article to find this person's opinion about the rules of missionary love. Okay. We're not going to tell you.
It's a secret. Okay, here's my headline. Jeopardy, you know Jeopardy, the show.
Of course, yeah, I watch it all the time. Yeah,
I love Jeopardy. And you know it's hosted by an LDS man, Ken Jennings, the winningest Jeopardy person of all times.
Hey, did you know, just for Mormon trivia, that he and Brandon Sanderson were roommates at BYU?
I didn't know that. That's a fun little note. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this story, here's your headline. Jeopardy featured a world religion category, and our church is not mentioned. Come on, Ken Jennings.
I have to say that's a big deal or not?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
No deal. Yeah. Come on. With all of the strife in the world at the moment with world religions, I would hope they would use that category to build peace and understanding among conflicting religions and not to promote our church.
I totally agree. But I also just wanted to ask you some of these questions and see if you could answer them. Please answer in the form of a question. Okay. Here we go. Around 1693, Jacob Amon founded this Mennonite group whose teachings stress separation from the world, hard work, and humility.
Who are the Mennonites?
Close. Guess again.
Amish.
Who are the Amish is correct. Yeah. Good job. I'm going to give you one more. Okay, let's see. One of the main deities of Hinduism, this auspicious one, is sometimes represented as a herdsman, a beggar, or a cosmic dancer.
Who is Shiva?
Oh, yes. Matt, you're good at this category.
I know my world religions.
I would not be good at the answers, but was I a good announcer? Do you think Ken Jennings should give me an audition?
Ken Jennings, you better be careful. Because Melissa reads the questions well, but doesn't act like she already knew the answer when somebody gets it wrong.
I did not already know the answer.
When
you get it right, I'm like, yes, good job.
I loved Alex Trebek so much. Ken Jennings has a different manner about him, but there is this little bit of like snide, like, come on, are you so stupid that you didn't get that right?
I love that about Ken Jennings. It's super fun.
All right. Well, my last big deal little, oh no, this isn't my last. my second to last.
Okay, go on.
Trustpilot, a site that reviews businesses, gives the LDS Church 3 stars.
Oh.
Is that a big deal, little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1. No deal.
Yeah. Why are we having all these stories that we say are no deal?
We can't help what the stories are for this week in Mormons.
We can't.
Listen, if you are really, really good, then there's going to be people that love you and there's going to be people that hate you. So the fact that the church is 3 stars, I don't know what the distribution looks like, but my guess is you got a lot of 5s and a lot of 1s. People that love the church, people that hate the church. And that's just a sign that they're
round
really
out right at a 3.
Yeah.
So your review should be about a 3.
So I guess that's
a good way to look at this.
I could say big deal because it means that the church is a great organization. Mm-hmm. But honestly, Melissa, if you see some company out there that's all 5-star reviews, do you say, "Oh, they must be amazing"?
Well, I say, if it's This Week in Mormons, I expect all 5-star reviews.
But like, as you look, if you're like, okay, for a restaurant, maybe, right? But as I read through people's review, like even on products, as I read through people's reviews, I'm like, there should be people that hate it and people that love it. Like, if I see that it's all good reviews, I automatically think they are paying people to give them good reviews. Because who out there is besides me, who out there is just giving 5-star reviews to everything that they rate?
That's true. Yeah. Matt, you are a what's the word? Certified Google reviewer.
I am that. I'm a local guide.
A local guide. Yeah. So when you review something on Google, it matters. It counts.
I feel like it does. Yeah.
Yes.
You know that my photos, because I will post photos on Google, I have over 3 million views of my photos on Google Maps.
Your photos of what? Like the in and out that you went to?
Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes I took a picture of a meal at the creamery at BYU. I took a picture of my meal and I was like, this is what a kid's meal is. Don't waste your money on getting something better because the kid's meal is so awesome. That has over 100,000 views of people looking at my kid's meal photo. Or like there was a Thai restaurant in Provo that I went to that I was like, this food is amazing. And I took a picture of the food. It has like 300,000 views of like that meal at that Thai restaurant. And now when I go there, it's like a booming restaurant. And I like to feel like I had a small part to play in that.
You're like Jerry Seinfeld when he went to the international restaurant that went in across his apartment. I'm talking about on the Seinfeld show. Babu. And you went to Babu, except for that Jerry Seinfeld destroyed Babu's business.
Right. Yeah. I only build businesses.
You build businesses. You do so much good in the world. I'm so glad we were able to tell people about it. Yeah.
That's right. You should follow my reviews on Google Maps. You should not. But yeah, I'm just saying I'm weird. I think about these kinds of things, like what 3 stars means, way more than most people do.
Okay. Thank you for your educated information. I appreciate it. Here's our next headline. Parents wonder if early morning seminary is worth the health costs for their children. Big deal, little deal, no deal. 3, 2, 1.
Big deal.
Little deal. Oh, good. Okay, big deal.
I think this is a big deal. I don't know the story. You have to tell me the story. But I'm a huge, huge fan of early morning seminary. I think all seminary should be early morning seminary.
Wait, you need to tell me more about this before I tell you the story. Why?
Because
it's a commitment thing?
No, because the release time seminary, those people are paid to teach seminary. Right. And it's a very different experience than when you have someone in your ward called to teach seminary. Like,
don't you think it's a better experience?
No, I do not.
Interesting.
Early morning seminary, it's like the most real seminary that you can get. And it builds connections with people that, I'm a huge, huge fan of early morning. Now, if I don't know what the health costs are, if it's that getting up early is a problem, I'm fine, do it in the afternoon. But every day, like, kids should go to seminary with an unpaid person who's called to teach that class.
This is so different than I think you would think about things, because as an educator yourself and as an academic, I would think that your outlook would be, we should absolutely have professionals who know what they're teaching these gospel basics to our teenagers who are preparing for adult life, who are building testimonies, and who are preparing to be missionaries. That's the approach I would think you would take.
Well, we were talking about this priestcraft thing a little while ago, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that seminary teachers are priestcraft, but I
Right.
am saying that there is some truth to this idea that when you're called to teach the gospel, you leave your employment behind and go teach the gospel because it fills you with the Spirit. When you're doing something as a service, it's a different fundamental experience than when you're doing it for pay. So I do think people should be paid to teach academic subjects in school because the Spirit isn't the teacher in that situation. But in seminary, there's not like this information you need to learn in seminary. In seminary, you need to learn how to connect with the Holy Ghost and to connect with the Lord or connect with the scriptures. And it's way better if you do that with a person who's not paid to do that.
Okay.
Which, by the way,
interesting.
Which, by the way, to circle back to our other story, when we talk about Utah as the breadbasket of the church, why is it that Utah is the only place in the church where you don't have volunteer seminary teachers?
Right.
Everywhere else why do we have to pay seminary teachers in Utah if we're so righteous in Utah and everybody else has volunteers that can, like, I had that as a calling. Every morning I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would teach a class every day as my calling. Like that's as demanding a calling as you could possibly have in the church.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was great for me. It was so good. It forced me to get in the scriptures. So I'm a huge fan of early morning seminary.
Interesting. This is not the topic that I thought I would ever get Matt to go on a rant on. It's very interesting. Okay, this article is, you're right about the early morning and the lack of sleep for that it causes for teens. It's specifically saying that teens actually need more sleep than adults. Teens should be getting actually 10 to 11 hours of sleep a day. That's a lot, right? And I always, like, when I look at teenagers and they like always want to sleep, I'm like, you don't need to sleep that much. Actually, scientifically, they need a lot of sleep. And then also, it's not just the amount of sleep, it's the time of day of the sleep. So their natural circadian rhythm actually has them going to sleep much later than adults. So the fact that they want to go to sleep at 12 or 1 is natural and normal. And then they still need the sleep on top of that. So
they want to sleep into like 10 or 11 in the morning. Right. Yeah.
But we say want to, but the research says actually need to. That's what's actually best for them. And so when we're talking about what's best for teenagers, as far as being able to concentrate, being able to remember, being able to function in the world, early morning seminary is not the best thing. And so
so I'm fine if you change the time. But young people, I feel like, so again, we were talking about seminaries and institutes, right? To me, they're different beasts and they need to be thought of differently. But kids should go to seminary every school day, taught by a volunteer. And I don't care when you do it, what time you do it, but it should happen because it's very, very important. And these young people that I taught in seminary, like, we became lifelong friends. Like, the mentorship, the friendship, all that stuff.
Yeah. And this article does also cite studies that indicate a strong positive link between faith and religious community and the overall health and mental wellness of young people. So there are definitely studies showing that seminary is important. But maybe just not the time of day. Okay. That was fun. Okay.
My story is LDS Church's stock portfolio swells to a 4-year high, including billions invested in big tech. Is that a big deal, a little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1.
Big deal. Yeah, big deal. I think anytime we have information about the church's finances, people are going to be interested and it's going to be a big deal. And do we have actual numbers? A 4-year high? Does that mean we know how much actually the church has?
Well, so the whistleblower said that Ensign Peak investment thing had 150 billion. But since they've been reporting, they're nowhere near 150 billion. Right now, it's $54.7 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So some people speculated
that Peak is who invests the church money. Is that?
No. Okay. So the church, when it has surplus tithing, puts it in savings. But they don't just put it in a savings account. They give it to Ensign Peak investors and they invest the church's money.
So this 54.7 billion is
surplus tithing.
Interesting. Okay.
And the church got in trouble for not disclosing the investments over there like they should. And so the church started doing this about a year ago. So every quarter, you're going to see these new stories about what the church is investing in Ensign Peak and how much they have in Ensign Peak.
And so if we're talking about, because this article, I'm reading it right now, it says in the last 3 months, the church has had a gain of 4.2 billion.
Yep.
That's just the interest that it made on its investments.
Yes.
4 billion in 3 months.
So their top 10 stocks that they own are Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia. I can't remember the top 10. Those are the top 3. So they're basically heavily invested in tech stocks right now. And those have had a really good last 3 months. And so their value of their portfolio has gone up a lot.
Okay. I've heard people argue that the church should not spend tithing money on investments because that's not what tithing money is set aside for. But I look at this and my argument would be if we're able to make 4.2 billion on investments, that's a great use of money, right? That's
a 10% return in 3 months.
It's increasing our ability to do the things that we want to do with tithing money. But do you think it's a fair argument that that's not what tithing money should be used for?
The church has said for as long as I can remember that they believe in saving for a rainy day.
Right.
That they believe in not spending everything that they bring in tithing. And they say that members of the church should follow their example. So what do we say? They have to put it in a savings account somewhere where somebody else takes their money and invests it and earns more money? Why not invest it in a better investment? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. So we're now going to move to what we call Twim Takes.
Takes. I like it.
Okay. So there's a story out this week about Mitt Romney.
Can we first say like him or hate him?
I always have mixed feelings about Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney is a very prominent member of our church, right?
Yes.
Anybody who knows Mitt Romney instantly knows he's associated with our church beyond being a politician. Yeah.
When he ran for president, I voted for him reluctantly.
Okay.
Because I voted for him because he's a member of our church and I believe that he shares my faith. And so I could trust him more than I could trust anyone else. At the same time, he's a little bit goofy and he and I just don't see the world exactly the same way.
To me, he's pompous.
There's definitely that aspect of it.
And he doesn't listen to his voters. Instead, he says, "Oh, voter, I know best. Trust me."
Okay. So that's what about this story really bothers me.
Okay. So let's hear the story.
Okay. So he was on MSNBC. Heaven knows why Mitt Romney felt the need to go on MSNBC, but whatever.
Okay.
And he's talking with this journalist on MSNBC. And basically what he says is that if Biden were smarter, he would have just pardoned President Trump of all of these federal crimes. He says that he should have made sure that the prosecutions never happened. But then once it got to the point that they were going to happen, he should have just pardoned him. And then they say, why? Why should he have just pardoned President Trump? And the answer was completely politics. It's like, because Trump wins politically from all of these court cases, it helps him make this case that he's a persecuted individual and all of that sort of stuff. And if Biden had just pardoned Trump, then that would no longer be a political issue and Trump wouldn't be doing as well as he is in the election. And
okay, so my question for you, and I'm not that into politics, but of course he gave a political answer. He's a politician. He's Mitt Romney. He's a politician. But what you're, and I understand that he has stepped away from politics. Like when he ends his current Senate,
he'll be done.
Then he's going to be done, at least running for Senate. But what you want is for Mitt Romney to have given a moral answer, not a political answer.
That's right.
What would the moral answer be that you would want him to say?
Well, I believe that we live in a society where there's the rule of law, right? And so in the rule of law, you have prosecutors, you have police officers, you have the justice system, and you should not interfere in the justice system, even if it's going to help or hurt you politically. Like, to me, that's a place where politics should have nothing to do with it. So to say Biden should pardon Trump not based on anything that happens with the law or any of that. It's just politics. I'm just like, you just seem to have no moral compass at all. Like, do you know what I mean? Doesn't that just feel like why would you? I don't know. Like
I hear what you're saying. I think because this is Twin Takes, we need to talk about the overarching issue, right?
Oh, okay.
Which is the overarching issue to me is, as a visible person / politician who is also known as a visible member of the church, how do you weigh which is the more important way to represent yourself? As a politician or as a member of the church? Because you could say the same thing about Utah's other senator, right? Mike Lee, or anybody else in politics, right? Do you have a moral obligation to represent yourself as a member of the church first?
Yeah. Well, and we talk about the people in the church who make the church look bad because of the crimes they commit, right? We talk about all of these Mormons behaving badly. And I just think even the good people sometimes make us look bad because they just say stupid things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So as like a little bit of a side note, did you hear about this punter from Kansas City that gave a speech at a college that said like women belong at home and things like that?
I did not.
Oh, okay. Well, a
graduation speech?
Yeah, so there's a private Catholic school in Kansas.
Okay.
And they invited this punter for the Kansas City Chiefs to come speak at commencement, and he is a conservative Catholic.
Okay.
And in speaking to this audience, he talked about values that they share, which is like abortion is wrong, women should stay home and raise kids, things like that. And as he's saying these things, clearly that's like not politically correct to say in our world.
Okay. And so but is it in line with his religion and the school that he's speaking for?
Exactly. Right. Okay. So I'm okay if Mitt Romney says something that's in line with our beliefs, and then people attack him because they say your beliefs are antiquated or old or weird or whatever.
Okay.
I'm not okay with somebody saying something that's not consistent with our beliefs just because it's the politically expedient thing to do. First of all, Joe Biden doesn't need political advice from Mitt Romney. Like, he's never going to ask for that advice from Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
And so if you're being asked a question like something like that, represent values first, our values first, even if it means you're going to get attacked from other people.
Interesting. Okay.
But you would say Mitt Romney's always been that way, Matt. Like, that's why I don't like Mitt Romney.
I mean, no, I actually agree with you. I agree with you. However, I think that the majority of senators, including LDS senators, don't do that, right? That's not the face that they have on when they're doing these interviews. They have the I'm a senator.
Politically correct. What? Right? Yeah.
Like who Harry Reid. Harry Reid was never I'm going to be an LDS person first. He was always like, I'm going to do my political job first when you're being interviewed by a news station. However, I do think I think that there's merit to what you're saying. I do.
Do you remember the interview we did with John Curtis from Utah, the representative from Utah?
Yes. And listeners, if you haven't heard that yet, it's one of my favorite interviews we did with, Representative John Curtis. He is running to hopefully take Mitt Romney's seat. But go on. What were you going to say about that?
I really liked how he talked about how much good you can do behind closed doors as a member of the church. And so I wonder if maybe sometimes they say, this is the price I have to pay. Public facing, maybe I've got to say some ridiculous things, but it's going to give me more power to do better things later on. Maybe, right? Maybe.
I hear what you're saying. I actually don't think John Curtis behaves in that way. I think John Curtis behaves in the way that you would hope Mitt Romney would.
Yeah.
And that he was very much LDS first or faith first.
Yeah.
Not in a everybody has to be my faith way or anything like that. But here's the person that I am. Here's the values that I believe in. Yeah. And here's what also I think needs to happen politically in the world. Yeah.
Well, so anyhow, I was
Good swim takes. Yeah.
Melissa, do we have time for This Week in Mormon History?
Yeah, let's do it. I love history so much. Okay.
The first two we're going to go through fast because the second one is you're going to love the third one. Sorry, you're going to love the third one. Okay.
Okay, bring it to me.
First one, 15 years ago today, the church launches their official radio station called the Mormon Channel. And there was that app you could listen to.
Oh, yeah. The Mormon Channel. Do they still have that?
Nope, it's gone.
Okay. So it wasn't long lived. Okay.
Isn't it funny though? That seems like not that long ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
140 years ago, the Logan Temple was dedicated.
My temple. Yeah. 140 years ago. That's interesting because it hasn't gone through renovation yet.
Oh, really?
Well, not like a major one. Like they've done, and I think they are planning on doing like the earthquaking, like they're doing to like they did to the St. George Temple.
Oh.
But I think it's going to happen once the Smithfield, Utah temple
is finished.
I think
is complete.
So. Yeah. Anyways, okay.
Based on my observation, the Smithfield Temple will not be able to take all of the people that have been going to the Logan. It's going to be very busy in Cache Valley trying to get to the temple for a while.
Okay.
Okay, the last one is 75 years ago, 1949. A person named John H. Coyle died in Payson. Now, do you know the name? This was
going to be a really exciting story.
You don't know the name?
Somebody died. No, I don't.
You don't know the name John H. Coyle. Okay. So I've got a link to this in the show notes.
Okay.
It's something called the Dream Mine. So John H. Coyle, he's a member of the church and he has visions. And he sees in vision World War I. He sees in vision these future events that come true. And so he gets this large following of members of the church that believe in this guy's like gift of revelation and his ability to see things in visions.
Was he a leader of the church or just a member of the church?
Just a member of the church.
Uh-huh.
One of his visions is there's a mine in Spanish Fork somewhere, the Dream Mine, and it's got a whole bunch of like gold or minerals or something like that. And so a lot of members of the church start giving him money because they want to invest in this mine and they want to get rich from this mine that he has seen in his dream. James E. Talmage, who was an apostle, he actually is a geologist. And so he goes and studies the soil and he's like, there's nothing here. And they're like, you don't know, Elder Talmage. This guy had a dream. And so there's like this conflict and he was in a bishop. He might've been a bishop and they released him from his calling as bishop because they're like, you're leading people astray. So then he moves to Idaho. And then starts to have another following in Idaho, and he gets put in a bishopric in Idaho, and they're like, no, 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 no. And then they release him from his bishopric in Idaho. And then he ends up dying in Payson.
Was the mine anything worth?
No, there was never anything there.
It has eerily Chad Daybell vibes to it.
That's why I wanted to share that for This Week in Mormon History. Like, this stuff is not new. As long as the church has been around. You remember, I don't know if you remember this, but in the Doctrine and Covenants, there's a whole section dedicated to this guy who said, I can get visions just like Joseph Smith. And then they like have this competition. Joseph Smith will print a revelation and you'll print a revelation and we'll see which one comes true. And the Lord's like, you are not the prophet. Joseph Smith is the prophet. So like even way back to the beginning, there's always these people that have visions and see things and that maybe they get some things right. But in the end, they don't get everything right. They don't
speak for the church. They're not the prophet. Okay. That was interesting, Matt. Yes.
Would it be bad for me to suggest that I had a dream last night about a hole in Idaho that's got a lot of gold in it that people could give me money? Would that be a wrong thing to do?
Did you have a dream about it?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Okay. Just wanted to see how far down this rabbit hole we were going. Okay.
Yeah. If you did have a dream about a cave filled with treasure, we do not want you to...
I wouldn't tell you about it. I'll go get that for myself.
We do not want you as a sponsor of This Week in Mormons. That's not the kind of stuff we're looking for.
Okay.
Hey, well, listener, remember, we have a Patreon page, and you can subscribe to Patreon, and you'll get bonus content. You'll get these episodes before other people get these episodes. It's only a few dollars a month. And we're on social media. There's a Facebook page that's really active. I learned last week from Tiffany that the Twitter page apparently is not all that active. But if you want like a page on Twitter where you can be active by yourself, go to our Twitter page.
And we'd love your feedback. If you have any comments on any of the stories that we covered, or you'd like to respond to Matt's early morning seminary rant, go ahead and contact us at contact@thisweekinmormons.com. We love to read your emails.
Also, remember that we have interviews coming up. We've done some really cool interviews. They're going to drop in the next couple of weeks, and we already teased the Taylor Hill interview. Yeah. So, hey, thanks for listening to the original Mormon / Latter-day Saint News podcast. Have a great week.